Welcome to the Top Fact Amazing. Back on December 15, 1953, in New York City, the gates of Hill and Knowlton Strategies Incorporated were firmly shut. Inside, President John Hill was hosting a momentous meeting, one that would go down in history. Gathered in the room were the leaders of all the major tobacco companies in the United States, the elite strategists of Hill and Knowlton, and two notable figures, Edward Bernays and C.C. Little. Edward Bernays, often referred to as the father of modern public relations, was a master of media manipulation. C.C. Little, on the other hand, was the president of the University of Michigan and a leading geneticist and cancer specialist of his time. This gathering would later be known as a frank statement to cigarette smokers. However, 50 years on, it's more accurately remembered as "Thank you for smoking." At this pivotal meeting, President Weir addressed the assembled group, laying the foundation for a new chapter in public health and corporate strategy. No one expects you to quit smoking. Smoking must remain fashionable. Over 50 years ago, cigarettes were introduced to the masses during the war, becoming a symbol of power and masculinity for men. Then, over 20 years ago, Edward Bernays transformed the cigarette into a torch of freedom for women during the feminist movement. But now, we face a new challenge. Doctors are claiming that cigarettes cause lung cancer. The question is, should we confront them head-on? No, we won't confront them directly. As always, we'll rely on Hollywood. With just one scene, we can get young people hooked on cigarettes. Once they take that first puff, they'll be tied down for life. Cigarettes will control their joy, happiness, and peace forever. In their daily lives, they'll spend a great deal of money to chase these pleasures. If the doctors are wrong and cigarettes don't cause lung cancer, then you'll have a customer for life. But if the doctors are right, and lung cancer does develop, it will quickly hollow out their bodies and savings. They'll die young, and the capital invested in them returns. This means there will be no burden on society, aligning perfectly with your interests. So, the key is simple: don't let consumers notice the connection between cigarettes and lung cancer. Dr. Little here is one of the country's top cancer specialists. He can help us identify the questionable points to fight science with science, creating doubt and confusion about the main issue. By turning the tobacco crisis into a scientific controversy, we can use this debate as invisible advertising for the cigarette industry. As long as this war of ideas continues, your cigarettes will sell like hotcakes. We will provide the public with a more scientific vision, offering a balanced perspective on the tobacco debate. Here's the plan. First, we'll establish a research committee. Second, we'll acknowledge to the public that there are serious medical concerns about tobacco causing cancer. However, we'll emphasize that there's no definitive scientific evidence to prove this. Third, our main goal should be to reassure the public. Fourth, the research committee will tackle these issues head-on. For instance, in the mouse experiment the doctors mentioned, half the mice died from the soot, but there's no data confirming that these deaths were caused by lung cancer. Consider these points. 1. For the last 25 years, women have smoked the most. So, why are lung cancer rates soaring among men? 2. What are the benefits of smoking? 3. What are the smoking habits of world leaders? 4. Over the centuries, what diseases have been wrongly attributed to tobacco? Half a month later, on January 1, 1954, we'll establish the Tobacco Research Institute. On January 5, a frank statement to cigarette smokers will be published in 448 newspapers simultaneously. Over 43 million copies were issued. In April, a booklet titled "Scientific Perspectives on the Tobacco Controversy" was distributed to 176,800 doctors and scientists, 15,000 news outlets, and 114 major publishers and media executives. The booklet included research from 36 leading scientists who questioned the link between smoking and health. At the same time, hundreds of professional tobacco lobbyists were sent across the United States. Armed with bundles of cash, they approached key public relations figures to make their case on TV shows. They never lied or denied the doctor's data. Instead, They used the question strategy long established by Hill and Knowlton Strategies Incorporated, continually raising doubts about the anti-tobacco claims. For example, on talk shows, a boy with lung cancer might be brought on stage. A tobacco lobbyist would then argue, if a customer dies, the tobacco companies lose a customer. That's bad for business. It's the anti-smoking advocates who want this boy to die so they can get more funding. Who knows if they even use that budget for anti-smoking efforts? By shifting the conversation from the dangers of teenage smoking to questions about institutional interests, the audience's focus would change. They would forget the health risks of smoking and instead question the motives of anti-smoking groups. For more on the incredible tactics of tobacco lobbyists, you can put down your cigarette and look up Thank You for Smoking. There are movies and novels by this name that delve into this history and reveal the shocking stories that I can't fully describe here. Back in 1947, at Bellevue Hospital in New York, the spark for the tobacco war was ignited. Here's how the story goes. One day, a medical student named Ernst Winder was stunned with fear. For the first time in his life, he saw the lungs of a lung cancer victim. Medical textbooks had told Winder that lung cancer was a rare disease. If a patient had lung cancer or died from it, hordes of medical students would flock to observe. But during Winder's internship, he realized the textbooks seemed to be wrong. Lung cancer was becoming increasingly common. Determined to find out why, Winder began visiting lung cancer patients privately and discovered they all had a smoking habit. He compared the spike in lung cancer rates to the rise in cigarette popularity and found a match. Winder started suspecting that cigarettes cause lung cancer. He shared his thoughts with his instructor, Mr. G.E., hoping for support. However, Mr. G.E. was not calm after hearing this. His office floor was littered with cigarette butts. A chain smoker himself, Mr. G.E. had smoked for half his life and firmly believed tobacco was a healthy natural herb, a kind of American god grass that could cure many diseases. That's how things were back then. Almost all doctors didn't see anything wrong with smoking. The traditional medical belief at the time even claimed that tobacco was good for health. Many doctors were advertising cigarettes, too. For instance, ads proclaimed, "More doctors choose to smoke Camels," and 20,679 doctors say that Luckies are less irritating. There were even ads that said, "Before you blame me, Mom, maybe you'd better light up a Marlboro." More than a third of American doctors claimed to smoke at least a pack of cigarettes a day. 55% of American adult males and 60% of adult females smoked. Doctors even endorsed a tobacco toothpaste, claiming it was a perfect breath freshener and could whiten cigarette stains on your teeth. You can still buy it today. So, when this medical student, Winder, suddenly told his chain-smoking instructor that smoking causes lung cancer, you can imagine the reaction. Mr. G.E. scolded Winder on the spot. However, he eventually approved Winder's study. Thinking that this stubborn student needed to see for himself that smoking had nothing to do with lung cancer, Winder conducted two famous studies. In 1948, he began handing out questionnaires at Bellevue Hospital, asking lung cancer patients about their smoking habits. Mr. G.E. didn't think Winder would find enough patients to complete the survey, but by 1949, Winder received a surprising 200 questionnaires. This meant that, in just one hospital in New York, 200 lung cancer patients came within a year. Had lung cancer become a common disease? Winder's preliminary study drew immediate media attention. The shocking news caught many people's eyes, including a reporter who asked Mr. G.E. about the incident. Confidently, Mr. G.E. said on TV that since silk stockings and cigarettes became popular at the same time, they could just as easily blame silk stockings for lung cancer. In 1950, Winder collected another 604 questionnaires from across the United States, proving again that a vast majority of lung cancer patients were heavy smokers. This time, Mr. G.E. was no longer dismissive. He began to reconsider Winder's research and decided to support his next experiment. Mr. G.E. and Winder designed a device to simulate a human lung and smoked cigarettes with it. They collected the tar condensate, dissolved it, and smeared it on the bodies of mice 3 times a week, using about the same amount of tar as found in a pack of cigarettes. They smeared 112 mice with tar and left 44 unsmeared, wanting to see what would happen over the next 20 months. After 42 days, the first cancerous mice appeared in the smeared group. As time went on, more mice in this group developed cancer and died. By the 12th month, 58% of the smeared mice had developed cancer. By the 16th month, which is about half the theoretical lifespan of the mice, the average time for the smeared mice to develop cancer was 71 weeks. By the end of 20 months, 53% of the no-smeared group survived, while only 9.8% of the smeared group survived. When converted to human terms, this equates to smoking about 3 packs a week for 30 to 35 years, leading to a fate similar to the mice in the smeared group. Upon reading the experimental data, Mr. GE realized the severity of the findings. Starting in 1953, he organized a team of leading thoracic surgeons and cancer specialists, urging the public to stop smoking. This marked the beginning of the first tobacco crisis. However, for Mr. GE, it was too late. 4 years later, he died of lung cancer. Tobacco has deep roots in American history. During the American Revolution in 1776, it was used as collateral to fund the war. In 1917, during World War I, General Pershing declared, "Tobacco is as necessary as bullets." In World War II, President Roosevelt designated cigarettes as a strategic commodity, distributing 300 billion cigarettes to the military. The hefty taxes on cigarettes were a significant adversary for Winder. By 1960, the average American smoked 4,171 cigarettes a year, up from 3,122 in 1953 when the tobacco crisis began. The tobacco companies knew that proving a direct link between smoking and cancer would require human experiments. However, scientific ethics prohibit any doctor from inducing cancer in a living person, leaving science in the realm of hypothesis. These hypotheses could be countered with the question strategy, perpetuating doubt and confusion. Let the scientific controversy simmer and let Hill and Knowlton Strategies Incorporated and tobacco lobbyists do their work. The more controversial the statements, the more effective the invisible advertising becomes. As long as no real conclusion is reached, cigarettes will continue to gain popularity. During this period, cigarette companies joined the fray. Initially, long filters were only found on women's cigarettes to prevent tobacco dust from sticking to their lips. But in 1952, Kent Cigarettes came up with a genius marketing scheme. They cleverly exploited the anxiety surrounding the scientific debate. All scientists, regardless of their stance, agreed that smoke particles were harmful, even if they couldn't pinpoint which substance caused lung cancer. Seizing on this, Kent introduced a fine particle filter to all their cigarettes, claiming it was a perfect technological product designed by top scientists from Dow Chemical and DuPont. This move capitalized on the public's anxiety about smoke particles. Soon, almost all cigarette brands copied Kent's idea and added filters. However, at the time, the main component of these filters was asbestos, which was later identified by the WHO as a primary carcinogen, a substance that definitely causes cancer. The story of asbestos is eerily similar to that of tobacco. Hill and Knowlton Strategies Incorporated later used similar tactics to defend asbestos. "Smoking is bad for your health" is now printed on all cigarette packets, a stark reminder of the blood and tears of 1.12 million cancer patients. In 1964, the U.S. Medical Administration reviewed 1,200 journals and over 6,000 papers, culminating in a comprehensive 150,000-word report. The main finding was clear: smoking causes cancer. The report documented a total of 1.12 million cancer cases and included many shocking pictures. This report finally persuaded the U.S. government to acknowledge that smoking was a major cause of the soaring lung cancer rates, prompting immediate action. That same year, the United States drafted and quickly passed the Federal Cigarette Labeling and Advertising Act. The act required all cigarette packets to carry a warning: smoking is extremely harmful to health, it can lead to cancer and other deadly diseases. However, the tobacco companies managed to dilute the impact of this warning. Through their influence, the wording was softened to "smoking is not good for health." In 1971, the last cigarette advertisement appeared on American television. However, It wasn't until 2012 that the WHO officially classified tobacco as a primary carcinogen. By 2020, the WHO reported that over the past 50 years, tobacco had killed half of its users, averaging over 8 million deaths per year. Of these, 7 million died directly from smoking, and 1.2 million died from second-hand smoke. In the 20th century, tobacco killed more than 100 million people, and it is estimated to kill more than 1 billion people in the 21st century. One notable statistic is that by 2018, the percentage of Americans who smoked had dropped to 16%. Tobacco consumption also fell from its peak of 4,345 cigarettes per capita to 1,052. Despite these improvements, the WHO states that there are still 1.3 billion smokers worldwide, with 80% of them living in developing countries. Every day, around the world, 80,000 children under 18 smoke their first cigarette. Additionally, about 12,000 children under 18 become regular smokers each day. Meanwhile, the percentage of smokers who successfully quit smoking is less than 7.5%. Let's recall the private meeting "Thank you for smoking." Perhaps behind tobacco, the so-called God weed of South America, there are even more sinister conspiracies. After all, in our story, America is like an alien genetic farm. All of the crops that come from here seem to have superpowers capable of changing the world. Well, that's all for today's story. Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.